NASCAR fans are finicky folks. We like what we like, we don't like what we don't like. We also then will do that until we like what we don't like and don't like what we like. It's very interesting to look at. And when it comes to drivers, that is where especially our opinions can change on a dime. And I think there's 7 drivers at different points at maybe different times and for different amounts of time that we have all changed our mind on at some point or another. So I want to look today at 7 times NASCAR fans have turned on drivers. First off, Matt DiBenedetto. Matt DiBenedetto was, for most NASCAR fans, relatively unknown until 2016. In that year at Bristol, he took a BK racing car to a 6th place finish and had an emotional interview afterwards that endeared him to many. But for the most part in his career, he had been a back-of-the-pack start-and-park style driver, racing for whatever team would pick him up. He had had opportunities before, but it just never went there. But in 2019 at the Bristol night race, about 3.5 years later after his first Bristol experience, he'd go toe-to-toe with none other than Denny Hamlin, ultimately losing the race at the end, but putting up a valiant effort that endeared him to many. And that was the peak of his popularity. For about a year or so, he became one of the more popular drivers in NASCAR. But what happened? Well, a couple things. To start off with, there were a lot of excuses and complaining coming from him when he had went over to the Wood brothers. It was pretty clear from the start that he was going to be a stopgap to whatever they wanted to do next, whether it be put Austin Cindric in the car or eventually Harrison Burton. And when it looked like there might have been an opportunity whatsoever, he kind of wasted it. He complained and said that he was not aware of any deal that Roger Penske and the Wood brothers had made with him. Another on the same path was Corey LaJoie. LaJoie was a lovable underdog, racing again for lower teams, but with that, he also was a driver who was very opinionated. And when there were a lot of drivers who were trying to keep quiet at the time, having an opinionated underdog like Corey LaJoie say some stuff that others wouldn't say, well, that was popular with fans. Plus, he would pop up at super speedways and nearly win, and again, with Spire, it was still impressive. But what happened? Well, to start with excuses. That's a big byline of what NASCAR fans don't like. It's excuses. And it seemed like left and right, there would be excuses for why he didn't perform well, why it was the team, why it was this or whatnot. And then when he got an opportunity at Gateway, driving for Hendrick Motorsports, a team that I will say did struggle at that track at the time, well, he completely fell flat on his face. And when he followed that up with an abysmal 2024 and no accountability, fans were not pleased with Lil LaJoie. Now, fans turning doesn't always have to be lower-level drivers or to a negative, but rather a positive. And I want to kind of combine 2 entities here with Jeff Gordon as well as Hendrick Motorsports. On Gordon's front, he was hated. He dominated NASCAR basically from coming in, at least a couple years in, and was winning just about everything in the late 90s. It didn't matter who you were unless you were Terry Labonte putting together the consistent mold that no one else really could replicate. You weren't beating Jeff Gordon. And Jeff Gordon was not the typical mold of a NASCAR driver at the time. Him and Jimmy Johnson dominating is also a big reason why Hendrick Motorsports was hated, as well as some off-track stuff. But ultimately, they rose to prominence. They always were popular, but they were also seen as the evil empire of NASCAR. That was until Dale Earnhardt Jr. joined. Basically, for many being the Luke Skywalker joining the empire, Earnhardt brought a lot of his fans over and softened Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and Hendrick Motorsports in general to the Earnhardt masses who hated them back when they were basically just kicking their ass. And Gordon fans also became the old guard. The Earnhardt fans had sort of went away over time, and Jeff Gordon fans were now the long-tenured fans. And when he ran into trouble and was shown to be mortal, if not actually kind of suck at one point for a bit, it was really big to root for the old driver and hope that he could get back to his winning ways. And today, Hendrick Motorsports is far and away the most popular team in NASCAR. Let's stick with Dale Earnhardt Jr. For one race, NASCAR fans did turn on him. It lasted maybe 24 hours, but it was an interesting time to be a NASCAR fan, and that was 2006 at the Xfinity race at Michigan. Jr. has been the most popular driver at this point for about 4 or 5 years. But racing in an Xfinity race. At the end, he was racing against Carl Edwards in front of him, as well as his team car, Robbie Gordon, in the 88. And on the backstretch, let's just not mince words, Junior cleared Edwards out. And it was pretty clear. The fans booed him really badly, actually, after the race. And back when Xfinity races could pull more live viewers at the track than Cup races can today, well, it was pretty loud to see 80, 90,000 people upset with Little E. Of course, by the next day he was cheered and nothing else happened, but it was pretty interesting for that 24-hour span. Kyle Busch was another one who really never had a good shot at being popular from the get-go. He was Kurt Busch's brother, his little brother at that, and Kurt Busch was hated at the time. He's another driver that a lot of people have turned positively on. And a lot of them saw him as nothing more than just a little shit that was really lippy and just not a fun personality to see. Add in that he crashed Dale Earnhardt Jr., had some egregious and honestly bratty moments, and the fact that he could back it all up by winning a ton, and yeah, you have the ingredients for a hated driver. Why is he like today? Well, two reasons. One, he left Toyota. Toyota is still hated, even after being in the sport now for a good 15 to nearly 20 years. And it's not going to help you to be a Toyota driver unless you're really loved. And on top of that, he stopped winning. And fondness kind of grows over time when you don't have that kind of winning pedigree. NASCAR fans hate you until you win. They hate dominance, not as much as drivers. So today, a lot of people are rooting for him almost as an underdog at RCR. Next up, you got Denny Hamlin. Especially in Virginia, I will add. I think that in particular we can look at. He was seen at the start of his career coming in as a humble kind of upstart. After all, he and his family did basically everything they could and spent every last dime they had making his racing career a thing. And he got the Dale Jr. seal of approval. And he followed it all up by being really damn good, finishing third in points in his first year. So why is Denny Hamlin so hated? And at least what are the big reasons? Well, to start with, when it comes to fans in Virginia, I would say look at Richmond in 2008. Yeah, that race that Kyle Busch crashed Dale Earnhardt Jr. on, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Denny Hamlin stopping on the racetrack with 10 to go while the 88 was leading. Add to that then, about a decade later, when Denny Hamlin dumped Chase Elliott into the corner, the most popular driver again, and, well, he was booed. And he is booed everywhere to this day. And lastly, there's Danica Patrick. Let's be honest, Danica today is hated, but it wasn't always that way. Early in the 2000s, she was a phenomenon of popularity. Anywhere you looked, there was Danica Patrick, Danica Patrick, Danica Patrick. And when you're someone like me who grew up and was often in Roscoe, Illinois, her hometown, it was everywhere. INDYCAR and NASCAR career alike early on. The allure of a successful woman driver to be a superstar was there. And she was a marketing machine. But ultimately, she fell, and she fell hard on her face. First off, she really didn't have the greatest magnetic personality, and it honestly seemed like she was ungrateful to many for the opportunities she had, and she often complained a lot, which, again, was not something a lot of fans were really going to gravitate towards. Add to that it was kind of like the act was wearing thin, and when you have overexposure on top of that, in different ways, people get sick of you. When the media is constantly pushing you and you don't succeed, well, yeah, a lot of people aren't going to be really happy about that. Plus, the big one, she just kind of sucked in NASCAR. Like, she was decent in IndyCar, but in NASCAR, she's known as Danica Crashrick at this point because she just crashed so much. She took championship-winning equipment at Stewart-Haas Racing, which, make no mistake, it was at the time, and ran 30th with it. At best, 25th, and every now and then she'd have a pop-up run, and people were surprised that she didn't crash. Danica was one of those drivers who could have been as popular as guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon, and at one point might have been, but ultimately threw it all away, just being a money-making machine. So there you go, 7 of the numerous drivers at this point that fans have turned on, either positively or negatively. So with that, I want to know what you think. Which drivers did you maybe turn on or change your opinion on? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.